Capricorn, if you've been feeling a strange quiet lately, not peaceful but no longer painful either, this message is for you. Something has shifted. Someone walked away from confusion, from mixed signals, from a connection that could not grow, and they didn't leave in anger. They left with clarity, with intention, with a plan. Right now there is someone quietly preparing something serious, not words, not promises, a real commitment. Capricorn, if you're open to receiving what's being built for you, comment "I am ready" below. Because this story is not about what ended, it's about what's being prepared, just beyond the silence. Capricorn, I want you to stay right here with me for a moment. Not rushing, not trying to understand everything at once. Just listening, because lately, there's been a kind of quiet around you. Not the peaceful kind you choose, but the kind that slowly arrives when something no longer feels safe to hold. You noticed it, didn't you? That connection. The one that used to mean something. It stopped feeling warm. Stopped feeling like a place you could rest. And the strange thing is, it didn't end with a fight. There was no dramatic goodbye. It simply became still. At first you may have wondered if you were asking for too much. If maybe patience would fix it. If silence just needed more time. But you're not who you used to be. You've lived enough life to know the difference between calm and absence. You felt it in the pauses. In the conversations that never quite reached your heart. In the way you kept giving space, hoping something would grow there. And nothing did. Capricorn, that wasn't failure. That was awareness arriving quietly. You reached a point where you could finally say to yourself, "This isn't feeding me anymore." Not because you're demanding. Not because you lack patience. But because you understand something deeply now. Love, connection, belonging, they don't survive on waiting alone. They need presence. They need intention. They need movement. And when those things disappear, silence stops being gentle. It starts becoming heavy. So if you've been feeling that weight lift recently, even just a little, that's not numbness. That's you choosing honesty with yourself. You didn't walk away loudly. You didn't slam doors. You simply stopped pouring your energy into a place that could not receive it. And that takes strength. The quiet kind. The kind Capricorn knows well. I want you to notice something else now. Since you let that go, your inner world has felt different. Still quiet, yes, but clearer. Like the air after a long storm finally settles, there's more room to breathe, more space inside your chest. And maybe, late at night, you've caught yourself wondering what it would feel like to be met instead of endured. To be welcomed instead of tolerated. To be chosen without having to explain your worth. That question didn't come from loneliness. It came from readiness. And as you sit with that feeling, without forcing it, without naming it yet, something begins to shift around you. Subtle, almost unnoticeable, but real. Because when a Capricorn stops settling for quiet that drains them, life responds in ways that don't announce themselves right away. They prepare. They align. They move pieces into place long before the moment arrives. So stay with me. Not because you need answers right now, but because something meaningful is already moving toward you in a way that matches who you've become. And the silence you're standing in now is not empty. It's making room. Capricorn, there is something else I want to share with you. And I want to say it gently. Because this part of the story is not about loss. It is about courage. Somewhere on the other side of your silence, there is a person who made a choice that changed everything. Not suddenly, not impulsively. This was not a dramatic exit. No raised voices. No slammed doors. It was the kind of decision that takes time to form. The kind that sits quietly in the chest long before it ever reaches the surface. They stayed longer than they should have. They tried to understand what did not make sense. They waited for something to grow in a place that could not support it. And for a while, they questioned themselves. Maybe you know that feeling, that moment when you ask, "Is it me? Am I expecting too much? Should I just be grateful for what is here?" But clarity has a way of arriving when denial finally gets tired. This person did not leave because they stopped caring. They left because caring without direction started to cost them pieces of themselves. What they walked away from never felt like home. It looked fine from the outside, stable enough, acceptable enough, but inside there was no warmth, no place to exhale, no emotional safety to rest into. And slowly, they understood something important. A future cannot be built where the heart is constantly bracing. So they chose responsibility over comfort. They chose honesty over familiarity. That choice was heavy. Walking away always is, but it was clean. No bitterness, no resentment carried forward, just a quiet knowing that staying would mean shrinking. And that was no longer an option. Capricorn. This kind of decision does not come from chaos. It comes from maturity. From someone who has reached a point where they no longer want to repeat cycles that lead nowhere. They did not look back because they were heartless. They did not look back because they finally trusted themselves. And once that trust is restored, there is no need to turn around. You may not have seen this happening. You may not even know this person yet. But energetically, their choice created movement. The kind that clears space, the kind that allows new alignment without force. Since that moment, they have been standing differently in the world. More grounded, more intentional, not searching, not chasing, just preparing. Preparing to show up as someone who can offer stability. As someone who knows what they want and is no longer afraid to choose it. And Capricorn, this is where your paths begin to lean toward each other. Not through urgency, not through coincidence, but through readiness. Two people who learned that walking away from what is wrong is sometimes the most loving act they can offer themselves. As you sit with this, you may feel a subtle sense of recognition. Not excitement, not anxiety, just calm awareness, like something clicking into place without needing explanation. That feeling is not random. It is what happens when decisions made in integrity start reshaping the future. And right now, that future is quietly taking form. Capricorn, there is something quietly unfolding here, and you may not see it yet. That is not a mistake. This person does not move in ways that announce themselves. They are not loud with intention. They do not rush toward connection just to fill space. They are the kind of soul who believes preparation is a form of respect. So while the world around them may look still, inside their life things have been shifting with purpose. They are not talking about it, not explaining themselves, not asking for reassurance. They are simply doing the work that most people skip. You would not notice it at first glance. It looks like ordinary days, quiet evenings, small routines that seem unremarkable. But beneath that surface, they are arranging their life in a new way, clearing what no longer belongs, strengthening what must last. Not because someone demanded it, but because they want to be ready when the moment arrives. There is something deeply grounding about this kind of energy. It is steady, unforced, the kind that does not chase connection but creates space for it to land safely. Capricorn, this person understands something most people learn too late. Opening the heart without structure leads to collapse. So instead of leading with emotion, they are building a foundation that can hold it. They are asking themselves difficult questions in private. Am I stable enough to share my life without asking someone else to carry my weight? Can I offer consistency without losing myself? Is my space a place where someone else could breathe? These are not romantic questions. They are real ones. And they shape everything that comes after. This is why their preparation feels invisible, because it is not performative. It is internal. You may feel it as a subtle calm when you think of them. Not excitement, not anxiety, just a sense of steadiness that does not require explanation. That feeling is not coincidence. It is resonance. This person is creating safety before they ever ask someone else to step inside. And Capricorn, that matters more than grand gestures ever could. They are preparing a life where presence is reliable, where silence is not avoidance but peace, where commitment is not a promise spoken too early, but a structure that already exists. You would recognize this energy immediately because it mirrors your own. You know what it means to take responsibility seriously, to think long-term, to make sure your world can support what you invite into it. That is why this connection feels different. It is not pulling at you. It is not demanding proof. It is simply there, waiting, Not impatient, not passive, just aligned. And as you sit with this awareness, you may begin to notice something else. A quiet warmth where there was once tension. A softening where you used to brace. Like stepping into a room that has already been prepared without needing to ask. You do not have to rush toward this. You do not have to name it yet. All you need to do is allow the space that is being made. Because when preparation is this intentional, the meeting point arrives naturally. And when it does, nothing will feel forced. It will feel familiar. Like something you have been moving toward without ever having to push. Capricorn, there is something you may not have named yet, but you have felt it. It shows up quietly. In the way your shoulders soften when you imagine certain spaces. In the way your breath slows when you think about being somewhere you do not have to explain yourself. Home, for you, has never been about walls or keys. It has always been about safety, about not needing armor. And this is where the energy around you begins to feel different. Because this person is not trying to win you over with words. They are not leading with charm. They are not asking you to believe anything. They are offering something far more rare. A feeling. The feeling of being welcome without conditions. You would notice it in the smallest ways. In how they pay attention without hovering. In how they make space without making it obvious. There is no pressure here. No sense that you have to perform or prove your value. You are not being studied. You are being received. And Capricorn, that matters to you more than romance ever could. You have spent enough of your life being the strong one, the responsible one, the one who carries weight quietly so others do not have to. So when someone creates a space where you can finally rest without guilt, your body recognizes it before your mind does. That is the kind of home this person understands. Not perfection, not luxury, but steadiness, consistency, the quiet assurance that nothing is going to fall apart if you lean back for a moment. They are attentive in a way that does not feel invasive, supportive without needing praise. You do not have to ask if you are safe here. You feel it. And that feeling is not accidental. It comes from intention. From someone who has already learned that love without safety is exhausting. So they lead with care. They think ahead. They anticipate needs you may not even voice out loud. Not because they are trying to impress you, but because this is how they move through the world when they take something seriously. Capricorn, this is what being chosen looks like when it is real. It does not overwhelm you. It does not rush you. It simply removes the need for defense. You may find yourself opening without effort, laughing more easily, speaking honestly without rehearsing your words first. That is not vulnerability forced. That is trust earned quietly. And the most important part is that nothing here asks you to become smaller. You are not required to soften your strength to be loved. You are not asked to carry less of yourself to fit into this space. You are welcomed exactly as you are. Ambition and tenderness, resolve and doubt, all of it. This is why the connection feels grounding instead of intoxicating. It steadies you instead of pulling you off center. And as you settle into that realization, there is a subtle shift inside. A sense that you do not need to brace anymore. That you can exhale and let the moment meet you. Because when home is felt this way, nothing needs to be rushed. Everything arrives in its own time, and right now, that sense of welcome is already beginning to surround you in ways that feel natural, unforced, almost familiar. As if you have stepped into something that was prepared long before you ever arrived. Capricorn, there is something quietly reassuring about the way this person moves. They are not trying to impress you in the way most people do. No grand declarations. No sweeping promises spoken too early. Nothing that sparkles for a moment and disappears when life asks for consistency. And I think part of you noticed that right away. Because when someone rushes toward you with intensity, your instinct is not excitement. It is caution. You have lived long enough to know that intensity without stability often becomes a burden. This person understands that. So instead of trying to dull you, they focus on something quieter. Reliability. They show up when they say they will. They follow through without being reminded. They pay attention to details that only matter if someone plans to stay. There is nothing performative about it. They are not keeping score. They are not seeking validation. They are simply living in a way that answers questions before you ever need to ask them. Capricorn, this is how maturity reveals itself. Not through words meant to persuade, but through actions that speak calmly over time. You might notice it in small moments. In how they remember what matters to you. In how they make space for your responsibilities instead of competing with them. They do not ask you to choose between ambition and connection. They respect both. That alone sets them apart. Because you do not want someone who promises the world. You want someone who can build it with you brick by brick, without losing patience. This person knows that care is not something you announce. It is something you practice. So they practice it. They think about what it means to support another life without control. They consider how to grow alongside someone instead of leaning on them. This is not about proving worth. It is about demonstrating readiness. Capricorn, you are very sensitive to intention. You may not speak about it often, but you feel it immediately when something is real. And with this person, nothing feels rushed. There is no pressure to decide, no timeline being imposed. Just a steady presence that invites trust instead of demanding it. You are not being swept off your feet. You are being met at your level. And that feels different. It feels like respect. They are not asking you to overlook red flags because of potential. They are showing you who they are now, consistent, grounded, willing to invest time without guarantees. That is not temporary attraction, that is clarity. And clarity, Capricorn, is something you value deeply. Because you have learned that real partnership is built slowly. Not because it lacks passion, but because it honors reality. This person is not afraid of the long road. They are not distracted by shortcuts. They understand that commitment is not a moment. It is a posture. A way of standing in the world that says, I am here and I am prepared to remain. As you sit with that realization, you may feel something settle inside you. Not excitement, not anticipation, but calm certainty, the kind that does not need to be announced. Because when intention is this clear, it does not need to convince. It simply waits. And that waiting is not passive. It is confident. It is the kind of presence that makes you realize you do not have to rush toward anything. You can move at your own pace. And still arrive exactly where you are meant to be. Capricorn, there is a quiet recognition happening here. Not the kind that startles you. Not the kind that rushes your heart. It arrives softly, like realizing you are not alone in wanting something real. Because for a long time, you have been surrounded by people who were unsure of what they wanted. People who liked the idea of connection, but disappeared when it required effort. You stayed longer than you should have in places that never planned to grow. Not because you lacked boundaries, but because you hoped depth might awaken where it simply did not exist. And over time, that hope became tiring. So you learned. You stopped chasing potential. You stopped explaining your needs. You began listening more closely to what people showed you instead of what they promised. And without making a declaration, you shifted. You started wanting something quieter. Something steadier. Not intensity, but intention. And here is where this connection becomes different. Because on the other side of this story is someone who has reached the same conclusion. They are no longer curious about halfway love. They are no longer intrigued by uncertainty. They have lived enough life to know that ambiguity drains the spirit. So when they look toward connection now, they are not looking for excitement. They are looking for alignment. You can feel that, can't you? There is no game here. No mixed signals. Just two people standing on their own ground, not reaching out of loneliness, but out of readiness. This is not about filling a gap. It is about meeting someone who has already built a life and wants to share it, not escape into another. Capricorn, that matters to you deeply. You do not want to be needed because someone is empty. You want to be chosen because someone is whole. And that is exactly the frequency this connection carries. There is a sense of mutual respect before anything is ever spoken. A recognition that both of you have paid your dues. that you know what it costs to build something that lasts. Neither of you is in a hurry, not because you are hesitant, but because you understand that rushing ruins foundations. So there is patience here, not passive waiting, but calm presence. You may notice how easy it feels to simply exist in this energy. No pressure to define, no need to impress, just a shared understanding that what you are both seeking cannot be rushed and should not be forced. This is not about testing chemistry. It is about recognizing compatibility, values lining up quietly, priorities matching without negotiation. Two people who know that partnership is not about excitement alone, but about choosing each other on ordinary days. And that realization brings relief, because you are tired of explaining why you want more than surface level. Here, you do not have to explain. It is already understood, and as that understanding settles in, something inside you relaxes. The constant evaluation, the quiet questioning, they begin to fade. Not because you have answers, but because you no longer feel alone in wanting what you want. There is a sense now that you are not searching blindly. You are recognizing. And recognition does not shout. It arrives gently, like standing still long enough to realize someone else has been standing there too, waiting for the same thing. A place to stop running. A place to build. A place that feels steady enough to last. Capricorn, there is a subtle shift in the air now. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that demands your attention. Just a quiet sense that something is about to move from intention into form. You may notice it in small ways. A message that feels different because it carries purpose. A suggestion that is not vague, not hypothetical, something grounded, specific. And the reason it stands out is because it does not try to impress you. It simply shows up. This is not the kind of gesture that announces itself loudly. There are no big speeches, no emotional buildup meant to persuade you. Instead, there is clarity, a simple invitation, a direct action, the kind that says, "I am here and I mean this." Capricorn, this is the language you trust. You have always believed that real commitment moves quietly and proves itself over time. So, when this moment arrives, your body will recognize it before your mind catches up. There will be no rush of adrenaline. Just a steady knowing that this is real enough to pay attention to. This person is not testing the waters. They are stepping onto solid ground. They are offering something practical. Something that can exist in the real world, not just in conversation. And that matters to you. You have grown tired of potential without follow-through, of plans that dissolve when life becomes inconvenient. So when someone moves toward you with intention that has already been thought through, you listen. Not because you are desperate, but because you respect effort. This step forward may look simple on the surface, a meeting, a shared moment, but beneath it is preparation, time invested, decisions made, an understanding that connection requires action, not just feeling. Capricorn, this is not about being swept away. It is about being met. There is no pressure here to respond immediately, no expectation that you change your pace. The invitation itself respects who you are. It gives you space to arrive fully, without rushing your process. And that is exactly why it feels safe. You may notice that your guard does not rise, that you do not feel the need to analyze every detail. There is a sense of ease because nothing is being hidden. No guessing, no ambiguity, just a clear step forward that matches the energy you have been living in for a while now. This is the kind of movement that grows trust naturally, because it does not ask you to imagine a future. It invites you to experience the present in a way that feels sustainable. Capricorn, this moment is not meant to change everything overnight. It is meant to open a door that has already been prepared on both sides. And when you step through, you will notice how natural it feels. No resistance, no second guessing, just a quiet sense that the timing makes sense. That this step forward did not come too early or too late. It arrived exactly when you were ready to receive it. And as you allow yourself to meet this moment without overthinking, something else begins to unfold. A deeper sense of confidence in your own discernment. A reassurance that your patience has not been wasted. Because when action finally appears after so much intention, It confirms what you already knew. That the right kind of commitment does not rush. It arrives calmly. And once it does, it continues moving forward with the same quiet strength that brought it to you in the first place. Capricorn, let me leave you with something that feels steady in your chest. Not advice, not a lesson, just a truth you can rest with. This entire experience has never been about being chosen because someone ran out of options. It has been about recognition. Someone looked at their life, at what they had built, at what no longer fit, and they chose again, not impulsively, not out of fear. They chose with clarity. They chose what aligned. That choice matters, because when someone chooses from fullness, they do not arrive with expectations that drain you. They arrive with intention that supports you. Capricorn, you were never meant to fill a void. You were never meant to rescue, or repair, or hold everything together alone. You came here to build alongside someone who already knows how to stand. Someone who does not need you to complete them, but wants you to walk with them, side by side. That is a very different kind of connection. It does not cling. It does not rush. It does not demand that you shrink so it can feel secure. Instead, it meets your strength with respect. It meets your silence with understanding. And it meets your pace without trying to change it. You have spent years learning what does not work for you. Learning when to stay, learning when to leave. Learning that patience without direction only delays truth. Those lessons were not wasted. They shaped your discernment. They taught you how to recognize when something is solid instead of simply familiar. That is why this feels different now. Not exciting in a chaotic way. Not intoxicating. But grounding, like finally standing on ground that does not shift beneath your feet. Capricorn, this is what happens when growth on both sides quietly converges. No announcement. No urgency. Just a sense that the timing makes sense. You may notice that you feel calmer when you think about what is forming. Not because you know where it leads, but because you trust how it is unfolding. That trust is not blind optimism. It is earned confidence. Confidence in your ability to recognize what is real. Confidence in your patience. Confidence in the fact that you do not need to chase what is meant to meet you. And this time, nothing is asking you to hurry. Nothing is asking you to prove your worth. Nothing is asking you to abandon your standards for the sake of connection. Everything here respects your rhythm, your boundaries, your long view of life. That is not coincidence. That is alignment. Capricorn, when something is built this way, it lasts. Not because it avoids difficulty, but because it knows how to move through it. Together, you are not stepping into fantasy. You are stepping into something real, something that understands that love is not loud. It is consistent. It is present. It shows up even on ordinary days. And as you sit with this moment, you may realize something quietly reassuring. You are not behind. You did not miss your chance. You were preparing to, in your own way, through discernment, through patience, through choosing yourself when others could not meet you. That preparation matters, because when two prepared lives meet, there is no rush, only recognition, only steadiness, only the quiet confidence that this is being built on something that can hold the weight of what comes next. And as that awareness settles, you may find yourself breathing a little deeper, standing a little taller, trusting a little more in the timing of your own life. Because when something is chosen with this level of intention, it does not need to announce itself. It simply arrives. And once it does, it keeps moving forward with the same calm strength that brought it to you. Capricorn, before we close this moment together, I want you to pause, just for a breath, and notice how different you feel from when you first pressed play. Not louder, not rushed, just steadier. That's how you know something real has touched you. Because what's coming into your life right now doesn't arrive with noise. It arrives with certainty, quiet, grounded, chosen. If this message found you tonight, it wasn't by accident. It means you're ready to stop doubting your timing, to stop questioning your standards, to trust that the way you move through life is finally being met at the same level. Capricorn, if this resonated with you, let me know you're here. Type "I trust my timing" in the comments. And if you're walking this journey with us, slowly, intentionally, with depth and purpose, make sure you're subscribed. This space is for those who choose growth over noise and clarity over chaos. The journey doesn't end here. Another message is already forming. Another layer is about to reveal itself. So stay close, stay grounded, and most of all, trust yourself. Because what you're building now is not temporary. It's meant to last.